Woo woo alert! We about to get spiritual up in hyperfocus. Y'all, get your pussyfootin', lollygagging, fiddle fartin', meek magoo distracted asses in hyperfocus. Now, let's go conquer some goals. Paul and I, this past Tuesday, went to a group at Bliss Spiritual Co-op. Bliss is like a local community in Charleston, South Carolina, where they have many different classes that you can go to, many different facilitators that host those classes. Paul and I host one ourselves, but they might be for sound baths or yoga or talking about manifestation. And that's what this one was about. It's called Law of Attraction, and it's all about your vibrational energy and what you are bringing into your own life and what you are manifesting in your own life. Paul and I love this group, so we go a lot. And this past Tuesday, when we went, there was a woman there named Cheryl. And Cheryl has been coming to that group for a very long time as well. So we've gotten to know her fairly well and her story and what she's manifesting. And recently, she made the decision that she wanted to move back home up north. And her reasoning behind that was not because she was trying to run away from anything. She simply felt like she needed an emotional foundation, and her family lives up north. And we were talking a lot about her packing all of her things up. And she was saying, as she was packing, she was seeing things in her house that maybe she really cherished in the past, or maybe they reminded her of something in her past. And she said, while it felt bad to let go of those items, it didn't really make sense for her to take them all the way back up north and travel them that whole way. And she also thought, well, do these items even serve me? So she opted to let go of a lot of those items and release them from her life, which released maybe some past energy to open room for something new in her life. And this conversation kind of morphed into the idea of letting go of things that don't serve you in life, and not just items, but beliefs. We started talking about this idea of wherever you go, you take yourself with you. While you might be able to change your scenery and your environment, you will always bring your emotional vibrations with you and your vibrational patterns with you. So if you are having negative thoughts internally, you can't run away from those. It doesn't matter where you go, you're going to have those. That's one of the things I respect greatly about Paul is he had a not great breakup a few years ago, and he said to me, I had a choice after that breakup. I could have either moved all the way back to California and gone back to where I felt comfortable. He said, or I could have stayed where I was and worked through my issues. And that's highly respectable that he decided not to run away. He decided to stay put and work through the things that he was working through and not go change his scenery, because it doesn't matter if he changes his scenery. Regardless of whether your emotional patterns and your vibrational patterns are positive or negative, you're taking those things with you wherever you go. So, what is your problem that you're working through? I know I'm working through one right now, and I've had this blueprint, this encoding throughout my entire life. I've always felt like a disappointment to people. I started to notice that when people would give me critique or feedback, or even when they were just asking a simple question, I often received their words as an attack. And this was especially true with Paul. And so we started to talk about where that originated from. Where did this problem come from? When I was about 4 years old, my parents went through a fairly nasty divorce. And they had been married for 25 years. I had two sisters. My oldest sister was about 16 years older than me, and my middle sister was 5 years older than me. I was 4, my middle sister was 9, and then my oldest sister was out in college. And while my oldest sister was out in college, she came out, uh, kind of. She wrote something where she was expressing her desire to come out of the closet, so to speak. And she had been withholding that because back in that day, that was not really acceptable and it wasn't as common as it is now. So she was ashamed of it. She was withholding that and didn't want to share it. So she had written something and stored it away. And eventually, my mother or my father found it. And it caused this emotional turmoil within my parents' relationship. But my mom ended up making a decision that ended in their divorce after 25 years. And so my dad was upset about this because he had built this life around this family and it was kind of deteriorating. My mom felt like it was her fault because she was the one who made that decision. My sister, my oldest sister, felt like it was her fault because she's the one who wrote the letter that they found. And my middle sister was at that point almost a teenager. So she was dealing with all of the emotions that I was too young to understand. She was watching everything and seeing everything occur and go down in the house. So as all of this went down in my life, I felt like everybody around me was upset. Like everybody around me was sad for some reason. And so I took on this emotional state of feeling like something was wrong with me, like I was a disappointment. So I started to try to please everyone around me because I was feeling like I had to. Otherwise, I would not be acceptable or lovable. I would be a disappointment. So I noticed that as I got older, I started to perceive any type of feedback or even simple comments as an attack on me. I felt like I wasn't good enough. Like, let's say I had something on my list to do, and Paul was holding me accountable for that. He would say, "Hey, have you done this thing yet?" And I would immediately bounce back with anger, like, "No, I haven't done the thing yet." poor Paul's like, "Oh, it's just a question. I don't understand." He's like, "I'm just curious. I'm not attacking you. I don't understand why you're perceiving this as an attack." And it's simply because I thought I wasn't good enough and that I needed to hold myself to a certain standard in order to be loved. I had to do certain things in order to be loved. So if I hadn't tackled that thing on my list yet, well, I wasn't good enough and he he was attacking me. So we have, thanks to him, we have worked through a lot of these emotions that have been encoded and blueprinted into my head. Why do I feel that way? It could even be as simple as a question of, excuse him, he's, if you can hear that, he's jingling the dishwasher. It's like, "Da, da, 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 da." Does anybody else have a dishwasher that doesn't freaking dry the dishes? It drives me nuts. Anyway, back to the story. So he would even ask me a question like, "Hey, why didn't you do X?" And it could be as simple as like, "Why didn't you choose to go with this solution rather than the other solution?" And to me, that's not like, now that I think about it, that's not an attack. He's just asking a question. He's curious about the answer. But at that time, I didn't know. I was thinking he was wanting me to choose one solution over the other. And that's because I think I grew up in a type of environment where there was a lot of passive aggressiveness. My family struggled to express their needs and their feelings in a calm and collected way. They weren't assertive, they were more passive aggressive. They wanted to be in control, but they didn't really know how to express that. So if they weren't or didn't feel like they were in control, they would sometimes make passive aggressive comments. And my family is amazing. But that did start some patterns in my behavior that I didn't even realize until I got older. I started to become passive aggressive myself. So I would drop hints at what I wanted and not assertively say what I needed. And so the people around me had to almost walk on eggshells, but more so just they had to guess at what I was thinking. Like you can't serve somebody's needs if you don't know what they are. So I kept dropping hints, and then I would get upset if they didn't pick up on my hints, and just basic passive aggressive behavior. And then if I didn't get what I wanted, I would sulk. I would be like walk around the house like a jerk. And nobody had any idea why I was upset because because uh, because I never told anybody. Like, what do I need? I don't even know that I knew what I needed. I just didn't know how to express it or wouldn't express it, and then I would get mad when people wouldn't meet those needs. People pleasing, but then also passive aggressive behavior, right? I didn't want to upset anybody, so I didn't want to enforce my needs upon them. But since I wouldn't express my needs, nobody could serve them or give them to me. And then I got mad about it. It's like this cycle of negativeness, right? But when Paul would ask me a question, going back to my problem of feeling like a disappointment, and my problem of perceiving things as an attack, I had to explore the why behind that. He would ask me, "What's the first memory of you feeling like this?" And it's funny because when I looked back at that, when he asked me, I remember, for example, when I used to go to high school events like prom or homecoming. I would get all dressed up. I would, you know, have my dress. I would have my hair done. I would have my makeup on, my jewelry, and then my my mom would always point this out. I used to have those like rubber bands, like just those normal rubber bands with the cover around them. I don't know how to explain this. You ladies know what I'm talking about. It's basically a rubber band around your wrist where you would use to put your hair up, right? And I used it all the time. If I needed to pull my hair back, I would use it, right? But because it was on my wrist and it was detracting from the visual, my mom would be like, "Hey, why don't you take that rubber band off? That's not really appropriate to wear." And it's so small and so simple, but I remember that occurring multiple times in my life. It's just a simple thing. You have a rubber band on your wrist. That's not appropriate for a work meeting. And I'm like, why? Why does it matter? It's just a tool for me to pull my hair up. And that always made me feel bad. And she had the best of intentions about it, but it always made me feel, like something was wrong. Something was wrong with me. I had one thing that was wrong with me. Like, why couldn't I be good enough? Why was I a disappointment because I had a rubber band on my arm? So simple and so stupid, but that's the way it made me feel. Another thing is when I was younger, I was very eccentric in how I would dress myself. So I loved wearing like leopard pants to school. I would make my own t shirts. I had like a yellow blazer with shoulder pads in it. That was so not cool. back when I was in school in the 90s. That was more of like a combination of like grunge and 80s, but I would wear just like strange things, like baseball t-shirts with a butterfly belt. And most of the time my family would say things like, "You look cute in that, but I would never wear that." And I didn't really care, but it always made me feel strange, like, oh, what I'm wearing is not acceptable for you, but it's acceptable for me because I'm weird, right? I just think there were often times where I would present myself in a certain way that my family didn't necessarily approve of. And eventually, I think they came to just accept that I was who I was. And if I wanted to wear a friggin' baseball t shirt with a butterfly belt, leopard pants, and a fedora, like, just let me do that, right? Who cares? Just let me be who I am. And they eventually came to just accept that Harris is the strange one and she'll always be that way. But if I had to reframe that from a different perspective, I think because of the small town that we lived in, and because of the things that occurred when I was a child between my parents, and because of the situation with my sister who was gay, and again, that wasn't common back in the day, back then. So people weren't very accepting of it. I think what was happening, because my mom always has amazing intentions and my family always has amazing intentions, I think what was occurring there is that I was being asked to fit in a little more because we already stood out in a small town where everybody knew everything that was going on in our family, right? So my mom was trying to prevent me from experiencing pain that was unnecessary. Maybe if I showed up to the prom with a rubber band on my wrist, people would make fun of me. And she didn't want to see me get made fun of because our family had already experienced some, you know, negative perception from the community. And not all negative perception, but some negative perception, right? So she just wanted what was best for me. If I walked into a room with a butterfly belt and a baseball shirt and a yellow blazer with shoulder pads in it, she didn't want people to look at me any differently because she probably already felt like our family had enough eyes on us, right? She was trying to prevent me from getting hurt. She had the best intention with how she comes at the things that she says. They may not come out that way, or I might not receive them that way, but that doesn't mean that she has negative intent. She probably has great intent. So I just need to reframe that from a different perspective. And once I reframe that, I need to address my belief around that thing and determine if it's serving me anymore. All of those emotions that I felt about standing out as a child, and in some ways, standing out now, I need to reassess that and then say, is that belief that my problem, I am a disappointment, is that serving me? And if I can reframe that, then I can respond differently in the future instead of walking around like Hulk and like Hulk smashing everything and being like, ah, why are you attacking me? I could just receive it in the way that it was intended or assume that it was intended in a good way. It was a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing. They aren't attacking me. They're asking a question. They're curious. If you continue to hold beliefs that don't serve you, then those negative manifestations will come up in the future to test you. I'm a firm believer in that the universe will test you if you have something internally to work on your problem. and it will conspire to work in your favor for those positive manifestations, those positive beliefs. What are those negative beliefs that you are holding, maybe from childhood, maybe recently? Do you think, oh, I'm really not sure that I'm going to get that job? Well, why do you feel that way? Do you think you're not good enough for that? Why are you feeling like that? Do the work around that belief. And is that belief serving you? Take away, yeah. I kind of just stole that from Sammy and Michelle's Build a Wealthy Spirit podcast. They have these really cute songs in their podcast, their intro and their takeaways. It says, takeaways. Maybe I need a song for my transitions. Think about that. Number one, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. So, what's your problem? And let's solve it. Check out the hook when my DJ revolves it. Ice, ice, baby. Number two, don't be a passive aggressive jerkball like me. That's not cool. Be better in your life. Number three, when you feel yourself getting triggered or upset by something, pause for a second and ask yourself, why do you feel this way? In addition, maybe what's the earliest memory you have of feeling that way? And can you reframe that situation so that you are seeing it from a different perspective? Once you identify the reason why you feel that way, ask yourself, is this belief serving me or not? Can I let it go and assume better intentions in the people surrounding me in my environment? And lastly, work to respond differently in the future. So when life comes around and slaps you in the face and says, get your shit together, you can, the universe is testing you. Then you can be like, hey, I got this. I'm going to respond differently this time. I'm not going to react like Hulk and smash everything. I'm going to be calm and collected and know my value, know my beliefs are strong and in the positive vibrational setting, and then move forward with your collected, calm, reasonable response to whatever that is in your life that is causing internal strife. Thank you guys for watching.